Well, hello. It's Don Lubach from the Ombuds office, and I'm here with my fellow associate ombuds, David Rasch. Good afternoon in our time.
Hello.
Um, it's the midweek, first week of March, and on the very first day of March, you delivered a live at lunch on behalf of our office with a good crowd. Congratulations on being a draw, Dr. Rasch. That was exciting. And I was hoping in this video we could just go over some of the things that you covered in a very short format. And also, I just wanted to ask you what you learned from the dozens of people who were on the call with us. So the title was Supervising During Turbulent Times, and what a beautiful image. Did you take that photo? Do you go up there
Yeah,
to?
I was up there. I took the photo. Yeah.
Excellent. Good. Yeah. Well, take it away. Tell us about what happened on Monday and what you learned from it.
Yeah, sure. The inspiration for this talk was just through the Ombuds office, us hearing from a lot of supervisors and starting to understand that all the changes that because of the pandemic to work at UCSB has really affected everybody, of course, but in very specific ways, supervisors are having to cope and make decisions and deal with a whole new world. And we wanted to just bring people together to acknowledge that and to think about, strategies and solutions that might be useful along the way. So,
Right. Yeah. And this first list that you have, I think, on your first slide, um, when you um, when you listed all the different things, so you kind of gave the overview of
yeah,
how this.
just wanted to sort of set the context for
Right.
everybody, of course, in the world is being affected and on all dimensions. And even though we're coping, day to day and week to week, I think sometimes it's good to step back and just realize that this is actually taking a toll. It's something we're actively working with and all the time. And it's good to think about it, especially in terms of thinking about how we take care of ourselves.
Yeah, and something poignant for me while I was sitting in on this was that we are at the 1 year mark, so it was just about today now, later in the week, where this was officially announced as a pandemic. So
Yeah,
good timing, David. Excellent.
yeah, right. Yeah. So I just wanted to set that context, and then during the session, this is what we were trying to do: just acknowledge and normalize and encourage discussion and self-care, and then look at sort of tips and resources for how to cope and deal with everything that has to deal with. So
Right.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I started talking about this, the role of being a supervisor, how complex it is, just in general. You get in the role and you just start doing it, maybe without thinking of how many different kinds of things you have to do to be a supervisor, many different kinds of skill sets, and you have to kind of move from one to the other and figure it out on your own for the most. And it's very challenging to do, even in the best of circumstances.
Right. This is a great list you came up with, and at our office we have been talking with quite a few supervisors who are many of them new, and not only are they navigating this role and realizing how multifaceted it is, but they're also uh, in a pandemic with all of us, and
Yeah, so there's change, lots of change about all systems, and of course adjustments that everybody on their staff has to make, and then how do you accommodate that? What kind of accommodations, exceptions, changes in workflow, and what have you, and more personal problems being brought up to supervisors as people try to sort out their own lives during these times and combine their family life with work, whether that involves homeschooling or taking care of an elderly parent or a spouse who's also at home. Really complex,
yeah,
and comes to work.
yeah. No one dropped off the call after you went through that list, but I imagine some people were probably like, "Oh, I better get to work. Look at all this
Yeah,
stuff I do."
kind of amazing, and amazing what people are doing.
Right,
It's really great. Yeah, and I wanted to talk about all those challenges that supervisors have. These more to do with just being in these pandemic times and working remotely with reduced resources, and how every day supervisors are figuring out how they're going to handle the next challenge, how they're going to supervise, how they figure out what staff do when and how, and problems that emerge, which is never ending, all in a context of uncertainty. We don't
right,
really know when we might return back to work and what that's going to look like when we come back.
right. Yeah, I was thinking particularly about limit setting, and I've talked with quite a few people who they've lost staff members for one reason or another, and we have a hiring freeze. So, how do
Yeah.
they how do they tell their customers, their constituents, their students that they can't do something? They're just so
Right.
used to serving, and we've hit a point where they just can't do certain things
Yeah.
uh, because
Yeah.
of
And
limits.
a lot of supervisors are in those jobs for a good reason. They're achievers. They're people who like to do things right and get things done. And in an environment where it's very hard to do that, you can often feel like I have to work harder or longer,
Right,
and to get it to the level you're used to. And sometimes you can't do that, and you don't want to push yourself to the point where you make yourself ill.
right.
So how do you set those limits for yourself and still get enough done, at the same time?
Yeah,
Yeah. And of course, your staff is coming to you with all kinds of stress, all of those problems that we've all been going through for a year. And then it affects maybe how we concentrate at work, how much energy we have, how available we are, sick leave, family leave.
right.
And how do you balance that in a staff where some people have much greater needs than others? And
Yes,
keeping it feeling equitable and fair. So, and then getting the job done.
right,
It's harder to track maybe what people are doing when they're working from home.
right.
And so that's a whole new world.
Yeah, and we're seeing from our side just all kinds of different right answers here, but it is fascinating to me the amount um, of styles and the wide range of practices that managers are using to cope with these different sorts of things. So,
Yeah, people are very creative, and it's amazing, what people are doing.
right,
Um, and I asked, everybody to be noticing how they're doing. After a year, the chronic stress adds up, and if you're in a situation where that's going on, you'll notice these signs starting to happen, whether it's for you or for your staff. The signs of chronic stress that can lead to kind of a burnout and decreased concentration and productivity, as well as illness if it goes far enough. So it's really good to notice those things that are happening. Maybe it's different than it was 6 months ago, and if so, how can you put yourself back on track, to stay healthy while you're taking care of all you have to take care of.
yeah, I appreciated you talking about this topic because your past involves not only being an ombuds, but also you ran the similar program to our ASAP program. So
Right.
you've seen people go through these emotional
Yeah.
hurdles or
Right.
these
When things go wrong at work, it affects everything.
right.
So it's really important to try to get things in a good enough place,
Yeah.
for the long run. And then that can be that has been, I think, a challenge for many.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, we did some breakout discussion groups. This was an opportunity for people to share, and I was really looking forward to this as a time when other supervisors can both commiserate, to share, give ideas, and a supervisor is often in a position where they're alone. They're making decisions by themselves. They're the one where the buck stops. They might provide a lot of support for their staff, but often they do not have, a sort of a web of support themselves. And so it's good, I think, to just connect with others who understand what it's like.
Yeah, and let me speak to any of you who did not attend and you're just watching our overview here. What we were trying to achieve in this, we're hoping that by sending the attendees out into small breakout rooms, that they would meet others, and also many of their challenges would be validated by their peers. And we really need to lean on each other at this point. David, I sent you accidentally out into one of the rooms, and you just stayed. I thought that was great. Did you learn anything from your group, or what did you
Yeah.
observe?
Yeah, I told my group I'm not supervising right now. I'm just playing ball.
Right.
But yeah, it was a couple of the themes. One was just that with remote work, they all noticed the change in being connected, interpersonally connected. It was just not as good, and it was harder to think of ways where they could informally, have some time. Some
Right.
people came up with creative ideas about some Zoom time where it was unstructured and it was really meant to be more informal. So it could kind of substitute for just what might happen quite naturally in an office when you're walking by someone's door and just sort of pop in and make a joke or say hello or catch up a little bit. And that those little bonding kind of things, without that, it's a challenge to keep staff connectivity and morale at the level you want to keep it at. So that was a shared concern for everybody.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think the other was just noticing, oh yeah, I do have some of those signs of stress going on. This has been a year already, and it's no clear end in sight, right? It's still not clear, even though things are getting better. It's not clear when things might go back to a more normal, maybe a new normal kind of a stasis of people being back at work, but that might look different, and that's going to be more changing and adjusting to figure all that out. So
Yeah, that was the effect that your talk had on me. Is like it forced me to stop, hit this 1 year marker, and I felt like I was just sort of checking myself, like, okay, how am I? How am I feeling? How much energy do I have? Am I going too fast, too slow?
yeah, how's this all affecting me? We just
Yeah.
step back and kind of think about it. It is a real major piece of history we're living through
Yes.
on so many different dimensions. So good to take stock of it.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, and then you gave some. Oh yeah, you have some warnings of stress, and then you have some
let
resources coming up as
me
well.
see, I'm going the wrong way.
Uh-oh.
There we go. Yeah, and then we ended up with just some ideas. People shared ideas, but also I put some up too about how they can have some percentage of their time focused on monitoring how they're doing, kind of looking at the gas gauge on your car and noticing if it's getting near E. Put some gas in the tank,
Yeah.
and here's some ways to do it. So yeah, and also emphasizing how important the leadership is and supervision is to the institution functioning. A
Right.
lot of people just have goodwill and energy, and they put it toward their work, and they solve problems and keep the whole place going, even when they might not be, getting a tremendous amount of support themselves. And I just really wanted to acknowledge supervisors for being in that role.
Yes.
That way.
Yeah, I think people seem there were a lot of head nods or people's expressions indicated that folks felt really validated by that reminder. It's like, oh my gosh, yes, I am doing all kinds of things.
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
Yeah, and then I think did you have a slide where we had some specific resources for, like,
Oh
it's
yeah.
ASAP? Oh yeah, here it is. So just a reminder to folks that HR, in my 30 plus years on campus, I think that they're offering more specific tools than they ever have before. I'm very excited about their career tools. Um, LinkedIn Learning, and that was kind of a paradoxical thing you had on the last slide. And on one hand, we should be protecting our time and so forth. But it also is valuable to learn new things,
Right.
even though we're in this struggling kind of time. And boy, these LinkedIn Learning modules are some of the best training I've seen in a long time. I have a cat trying to jump on my lap right now. ASAP is out there and doing some great work. We're here for anything. Having conversations like the one we're having right now, we would invite you to come and talk to us about that. And just also the work-life resources now offered through HR are again better than I've ever seen. So we're really looking at figuring out ways to help people balance.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure there's lots of others we didn't cover too. So,
Yeah, I'm sure there are too.
yeah. Well, I feel like part of my pandemic survival has been working with you, David, and feeling like
Same here.
it's great to like the folks you're working, even if you don't see them in person, and learn from them. I've been learning so much over this year. So thank you for all the stuff that you provide for the campus. And if you'd like to make an appointment with David or myself or Caroline Adams, the Ombuds, you just dial the main number. I'll try to put it up on the thing, 805 893 3285. And we'll schedule with you. It's always confidential, and we're ready to hear anything. Oh, the cat's starting to climb up my jacket now. So.
It's time to cut it right there.
Very good. All right. Thank you, David Rasch. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Don. Really appreciate the opportunity.
All right.